Hey, a new definition for obesity was recently put forward, and whilst this might seem like a fairly dry and theoretical discussion, I wanted you to know what's going on behind the scenes in the world of medicine. Now, the Lancet Commission on Obesity, which is a group of experts in the field of obesity from around the world, has just released their recommendations for a new way to define and diagnose obesity. Now, this plan uses criteria to look at high body weight from a slightly different angle than current methods, which revolve around the body mass index or BMI. And BMI was only ever meant to be a population measure to compare body sizes for populations and look at trends over time. But it's appeared in the guidelines for measurement of individuals, which isn't ideal. And it does result in identifying obesity in people with high muscle mass, amongst other issues. But it has been relied upon in clinical practice, and health professionals are all aware that the range should be different for different age groups and countries, and that BMI misdiagnoses people with very high or low muscle or fluid mass. But it's been a simple measure, and for the most part, it's served its purpose. One example of it going very wrong is that I've tried over the years to help many strong men argue against being required to lose weight to pass military medicals when the eyeball test tells you they're in great shape for military service. But the service had criteria based on BMI, and these men with high muscle mass were failing. Yet a body composition test easily showed that they were lean and had high muscle mass. Here, I want to explain what a change would mean for both health professionals and consumers. Now, the new definition of obesity from the Lancet Commission suggests defining obesity as a chronic disease that results from excess body fat damaging organs and tissues. That is the disease when excess body fat starts damaging organs and tissues. Now, some may balk at the idea of labeling someone with high body weight as having a disease. It's generally considered a risk for disease rather than a disease itself, so there is some controversy there. By defining obesity as a disease, they're saying that it becomes a disease when excess body fat starts damaging organs and tissues. So we're looking at how much body fat a person has, where fat is stored in the body because that has an impact on health, and the health problems caused by that body fat. Now, this definition then distinguishes two levels. The first is clinical obesity, where there's excess body fat causing harm to health in the form of high blood pressure, diabetes, or any number of 18 different identified health problems. Or preclinical obesity, where there is excess body fat, but no evidence of current impact on health. I would say that I do feel a little uncomfortable about application of the recommended ways of measuring excess body fat. At least weight and height were not too invasive to measure, but the new suggestions are waist to height ratio or just waist measurement. And I would share in consumers' discomfort about waist measurement because it's quite invasive, but it's also very difficult to get the right measurement. Several practitioners will measure it differently, and the more excess body fat you have, the more difficult it is to get a predictable reading. So whilst we need some objective measure, I think this is difficult, and that self-assessment by the person or an eyeball test by the practitioner holds some value on an individual non-research level. I know that the alternative of using a measure of body fat like the bioimpedance analyzers, which is what I use in clinic, and they're pretty accessible now, is actually ideal. It's easy to measure and it's easy to monitor change. One of the things I like most about this suggested change to practice is that there's an emphasis on measuring improvement in these associated health problems and not just measurement of weight. There are some things we still don't understand about getting fat out of the body once it's in there, which can confound success if weight is the only measure. Now, the 18 diagnostic criteria identifies a range of things, and only one of them needs to be present to consider this a clinical problem. These points look at things like high blood sugar or cholesterol, issues like joint pain or sleep apnea, and mental health and social impacts. So what does this mean for health professionals? Well, for doctors and other health workers, this new way could help focus on more than just weight. But the problems, if any, that are associated with it, and raise awareness that not every case of high body fat requires action, and identify those people. It might also lead to better funding and support. Right now, obesity treatments often get less money than other diseases like cancer or diabetes. And this is partly because there is a societal blame for excess weight on personal choices. And so this step and the awareness raised by making this change may close that gap and provide additional education to health professionals. So what does it mean for consumers? Well, for people living with obesity, these changes could reduce blame and judgment, could show that obesity is a complex issue and not just about lifestyle choices, and lead to better treatments and support from health professionals. It may also gain attention from government aimed at changing the environment. The new definition highlights that obesity is affected by genetics, environment, psychological, nutritional, and metabolic factors, not just how a person chooses to eat or exercise on a day-to-day basis. I'd like to see broad recognition that not all excess body fat comes from eating large amounts. There's things that can go wrong in the regulation of body fat storage and utilization in the human body, and certainly something is causing this, and I think it's likely chemical. Even in situations where the excess body fat comes from a large intake of food or unhealthy food, there's something driving that behaviour. I liken it to scratching because there's less judgment around scratching as a behaviour. Nobody spends all their time scratching themselves just for fun. People who aren't scratching themselves aren't itchy. There's no drive for that behaviour. So when it comes to overeating, nobody chooses to do that repeatedly. There are things about our environment, our psychology, or our biology that drive that, and things that interfere with appetite and the sensation of satisfaction. And this deserves to be treated. People who are not overeating don't have the drive. So diet and exercise are still part of the plan because we're normalizing healthy behavior whilst working on taking away that drive. This is one of the actions of the GLP-1s and bariatric surgery, taking away the drive to eat so that we can focus on normalizing behavior and giving us the chance to work on those drivers. What happens next? Well, the new plan is still a suggestion at this stage. To become official, it has to be added to guidelines and used by health organisations worldwide. The goal is to make healthcare fairer, provide more money for treatments and support by gaining recognition, and to help doctors and health workers work together on this problem. I hope this plan shows that people are starting to see obesity as more than just a number on a scale. It could mean better care and less judgment for those at a high body weight. For health workers, it's a chance to help lead this change and focus on health, not just weight. If you're seeking help for weight concerns, I still encourage you to seek out practitioners with a special interest in this area for the best and most up-to-date treatment options. In Australia, reach out to us via our website, greatideas.net.au, and we'll have more options for international clients coming soon. I'll see you next time.